This is Gilbert Gottfried. This is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we're once again recording at Nutmeg Post with our engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is a celebrated writer, producer, and director of popular films such as Look Who's Talking, Look Who's Talking 2, Johnny Dangerously, Loser, National Lampoon's European Vacation, and of course the iconic and much-admired classics Clueless and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She's also written and directed for television with credits that include The Carrie Diaries, Gossip Girl, The Office, Baby Talk, and the spin-off series Fast Time, based on a 1982 movie. In her 4 decades in show business, she's worked with an impressive roster of talented performers, including Sean Penn, John Travolta, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, Paul Rudd, Jennifer Jason Leigh, George Segal, Will Ferrell, Bruce Willis, and most importantly, me. And if all that isn't enough to impress, she also shares our appreciation for the single greatest film ever committed to celluloid. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Please welcome to the podcast a witty and talented filmmaker and a woman who claims her 2 most vivid childhood memories include James Cagney and Speedy, the Alka-Seltzer mascot, my old friend Amy Heckerling.
I don't know where you heard all that, but yes, it's all true. And John Travolta and Gilbert had a dancing scene in Look Who's Talking 2.
Really?
And I'm pretty sure that John Travolta said that Gilbert was his favorite partner of all time.
So you're starting the show with a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he taught me a very simple dance step. So the dance step I do in Look Who's Talking 2 was taught to me by John Travolta.
Wow. Well, you know, it's like he's also a choreographer.
Now, this is the most important thing I should get to first. I actually just yesterday met Phoebe Cates' son, who's an adult.
Oh, Owen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Owen Klein.
And you know,
Who's a filmmaker.
What's he?
Yeah.
He's
I
a
was
budding
gonna say.
filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm
Nice kid.
standing there going, you know, I jerked off to pictures of your mother.
You said that to him?
Yeah. I don't know
Nice.
how many times I whacked off to your mother. And now, she didn't want to show her tits in
This is
Fast
true.
Times at
Yes.
Ridgemont High.
Starting right off, huh, Gil?
Okay, here we go.
There's
Well,
no ramp here,
it's
Amy.
true because this is where I get a lot of grief from, like, you know, feminists and people that want to say that women should be all empowered and stuff. But really, I'm very selfish. I was out for myself. I wanted a career. I wanted that movie to do well. I wanted girls to like it, but I wanted boys to like it. And I knew what boys would like. And that was in the script, and she agreed to do the script, and she signed a contract. And so she tried to, you know, enlist me in her cause of, like, it's not really that important. We kind of know what the scene's about, and it would be okay if she opened her bra a little bit early so that by the time you saw anything, it was blocked by Judge Reinhold. And I said, no. No. Here's the mark where you open it. That's where you got to do it, right there. And then he comes here, and you'll be blocked. But no, it's got to happen on that mark. And she thought she saw that people are in the building next door, were on the roof looking at her.
Oh, yeah, she wanted a closed set. Yeah.
It was a closed set. I don't think there were people. People were sent to make sure nobody was anywhere. But the producer, who was a great producer, Art Lindson, who also did The Untouchables, and he was there, and he backed me up that, no, this was something that she agreed to, and she got the part and signed the contract, and that was that. And so all other women can hate me, but people watch that movie. And years later, I went to a video store, and the guy told me that they had a lot of problems with the videotape before DVDs because it was always breaking at that point because it was too stretched
People are pausing it.
It was
Were you in a
paused too many
video
times.
store in Gilbert's neighborhood?
Because, I mean, her tits in Fast Times.
They were beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, incredible.
Perfect.
Exquisite looking woman.
Yeah.
She's got an amazing body.
Yeah.
It was like that was like the sled in Citizen Kane. Her tits in Fast Times. Uh-huh. They were amazing.
They answer all questions at the end.
And
Yes.
didn't you run into problems when you tried to include male nudity in Fast Times?
Having
You tell a story about it.
grown up where there was like this sexual revolution that I had heard about, and apparently there was nudity in movies. And by the time I was old enough to see the movies, I saw that there was women were naked, like in all these foreign films, and full frontal females, but you never saw any men. And in American movies, forget about it, because there wasn't like naked people in movies. But I thought, well, I'm a female director, and I can change that. I can have some equality. I can have, naked women and naked men, and that would be fair. And so we shot a scene where Bobby Romanis is going to have sex, and they're both very awkward, and they take off their clothes, and you saw from mid-thigh up, you saw everything. And the censors said, you can't do that. You can't show the male organ. And I said, well, why not? You could show full frontal females. And they go, that's because the male organ is aggressive. And the female organ is. And it's like, well, that's not fair. And isn't it like, organ to organ? Like some are aggressive, some are kind of shy, some, but they said,
Passive.
no, you can't show that. But I was told that if anybody wanted to fight that in Washington with the censors, they could go there. And the person that would fall to was the post-production executive, Verna Fields. Now, Verna at the time, was amazing. She was she cut Jaws.
Oh yeah, I was saying the Verna
she is
Fields,
responsible for all the great directors now because she was the brilliant editor, and she was sick at the time and she had cancer, and I couldn't say, "Hey, I want to show a dick. Would you fly down, fly over to Washington and fight for me?" When she was like, I mean, it was hard for her to get up the stairs to the cutting room, so I couldn't do that. So. We blew up the shot, and there's nothing there. It's all okay.
But see, here's something.
Yeah.
Here's the only argument I can have. Is you see full frontal female nudity, but really very little in the way of vaginas.
This is true. You have a good point.
That's an excellent insight.
Yes. You see vaginas more in like these like celebrity actresses, actresses and singers getting out of a car.
In recent times, yes. But in the 70s, when there was like WR, Mysteries of the Orgasm, or I Am Curious Yellow, or the foreign films, you saw the Europeans. They
Emmanuel and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
full frontal naked women running around. You have to see these movies.
Yeah, those were always like the Emmanuel movies bored the shit out of me.
Well, those were like porn movies, the ones that were considered artistic.
Man and a Woman.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember the windshield wipers.
I remember I Am Curious Yellow was a big controversy.
See, now Fast Times came out right in the midst of a great time for movie nudity. Like the 80s.
Well, it was just as the door was shutting because it was like Reagan and just say no and
82.
Sort of closing the door on all the sex and drugs. And we sort of slipped under as the garage door was closing. And I think things changed a lot after that. And for a long time, I think there was no R-rated youth movies until Judd Apatow came along.
You know what I noticed? The first time I noticed the change, I went to some like slasher film on 42nd Street, and I'm watching the slasher film, and I'm going, first of all, where are the tits? There's no tits here. The girl's getting into the shower, but we're not seeing anything. And the guy would come after her with a knife, and you wouldn't see the knife go in, the blood squirting.
Yeah.
You felt shaded, huh?
Yeah, yeah. There was some major editing going on.
Yeah, there was things got very tame quickly, and there was Reagan was the president. There was a big conservative backlash, and the rating board got very hard-assed for a long time. And then I would see movies like more recently, like Borat, and you'd see dicks flying all around the place. You'd see, and you go,
Slapping the lens.
Wait a minute, I thought you couldn't show that.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, no, you can, but they can't be for sex. They could just be, incidental.
Your favorite, Gil. Incidental nudity.
I do. That's my favorite kind of. There's a thing that a friend of mine nicknamed Gilbert Nudity.
We had Mr. Skin on the show. You know Mr. Skin?
No.
Oh, he runs the movie nudity website. He's
wow.
a connoisseur.
Oh, is he the one that tells you exactly where?
That's
yes,
the guy.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
He was here.
Gilbert Nudity to me is like a naked girl doing her taxes. That's it. I don't need the sex scene.
Yeah.
He likes it
to me is
casual.
too much,
And
yeah.
I have a friend, and I will tell him, okay, if you're watching my movie, when it cuts to all the girls like doing this, 6 seconds in, somebody falls and she's not wearing underwear, you'll see some. But nobody had noticed it, but I could tell my friend.
Now, but do women who go to movies actually want to see actors' dicks?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not somebody that wants to see a lot of nudity. I mean, I think it works more for comedy than for turning people on. I think if you're actually going to be nude in a situation with someone, there's a lot of lighting that's got to go on. And if you have a smoke machine, maybe that could help. But as far as in a film, no, I don't think women go like, oh boy, you see so-and-so's dick. But you know what? I'm not a normal female because a lot of females they'll like a guy because he's got big muscles. And I find that who cares? That's for stupid people, muscles. That's, they'll want to see somebody take their shirt off some guy. And I'll go, no, I like shirts with ties especially. But no, not guys taking their shirts off so you see a six-pack. Who gives a fuck?
So you're not the best judge for
no.
the question.
It seems like nudity in movies, if it's a girl naked, it's sexual. If it's a guy naked, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like Will Ferrell was always.
Yes.
That sounds like how Borat got away with it.
Yeah,
It wasn't lascivious.
It was just funny.
Comic relief.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think it's funny if you have the right attitude. There's even now guys that are sort of handsome that are funny being less clothed because they're making fun of the idea of it. Sort of funny himbos.
Oh, like the guy in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I'm forgetting his name.
as long as they're got the right
Jason
attitude of isn't it silly how vain this makes me? It could be funny. But it's not something where, you see so-and-so take their shirt off and you go, whoa. That's I don't know.
Tell us about some of the battles on Fast Times, because I watched the director's commentary with you and Cameron. One of the nice things about it is your nice chemistry and how fond you obviously are of each other and how much you enjoyed working together.
I love
comes
Cameron.
through. I wanted to hear. I wish they had made more movies together because I just want to go on listening to director's commentaries.
I'm up for that. I mean, I think he's so brilliant. He's such an amazing writer. He's an amazing director. Because he's just such a human, and he's got such a great sense of comedy and.
Well,
but
I'm
his
a fan.
heart, it's really that's it. That's
I'm
why
a
he's
fan
great.
of his movies and his Billy Wilder book.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Mike McPadden is here, our social media director, who's obsessed with Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So I got to ask you a couple of questions about it before we move on. And I heard this stuff in the director's commentary. Did not know David Lynch was considered to direct the Cameron script, which blows my mind.
I didn't know that either.
You guys said it.
Wait, I said it?
On the commentary.
Because somebody told me about it, and I was like, I had not known that for decades. I didn't know that.
Interesting. Or that they were so worried, the studio was so worried at some point that you were delivering the wrong kind of teen comedy that they sent John Landis to the set.
John Landis came to the set, yeah. And, I thought I had met him a couple of times, and I thought he was just being friendly. And we were right there, on the sound stages, right by everybody's offices. But apparently, years later, he told me that they thought the movie was too depressing and it wasn't going to be a wacky teen comedy. And so they sent him to the set, and he was just being really friendly. And then apparently he told me that he told them, it's fine, leave her alone. And, so I can understand the problem, because when we started shooting the movie, we started in the house, which was the Jennifer Jason Leigh stuff.
Right.
Which was like all her aggravation of getting pregnant, of Damone not calling her, sad things are happening, and that was all in the beginning. And then later on, we went to the school in the mall where more of the fun stuff happens. So they probably saw, girl waiting for a guy not giving her a ride to an abortion and said, this is not a movie we want to make. It was in the script.
Yeah.
And they should understand that there's a schedule and you're shooting the things in whatever order you worked out. But they were afraid that it was going to be too depressing.
Were they looking for a Porky's kind of a thing? Were they looking for just a pure teen escapist? I mean, because the movie delivers plenty of laughs. There's comedy. Sean Penn's great.
Yeah, I mean, what I loved about Cameron's script and his book was that it was just so real. All those kids, you know that they were based on real people, but beyond that, he had, feeling for them. And that comes through in the script and hopefully in the movie. But, I was going for laughs that would work with what was happening in other places, not like crazy stuff. I mean, there was a thing where Ratner sits with Jennifer Jason Leigh, and he's too awkward. They start to kiss, but he gets up. And the studio saw that scene, and they were like, we have to reshoot this. And we want it to be that they kind of get into a pretzel-like shape, and they're caught, and it was like, make it crazy, weird thing that physicalized the, that they get into a mess.
It's weird. It's like they don't understand the source material.
Yeah. And so I was there, and we were going to start to shoot something, and I didn't know how I was going to do it because it wasn't what was in my head. And then I got on the set and threw up, practically on Jennifer, because the script woman had the flu, and I was feeling kind of crummy. And then it just, between the aggravation and the flu coming on, it just went bleh. And so they sent me home, and Art Linson shot a version. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because
I don't care.
It's on the commentary.
Okay,
it's already out there.
I don't want anybody in trouble at the studio. But and ultimately, they liked it the other way, so we put that in.
What I remember about Fast Times that sort of separated it from the regular, basically USA Up All Night tits and ass teen comedies was that there's that one speech that Judge Reinhold gives where, like, they're saying, you're a teenager, you're out having fun, getting laid, and he's not doing any of that.
Yeah, when he talks to his guidance counselor. And it's like, well, I'm just still waiting for the fun to start. When everybody's like saying, it's your last year, you're at the top of the world, the best years of your life. And he's like, you know what? I get up at 6 a.m., I go to Mighty Mart, I go to school, I go back to, And he has a way of, getting really worked up and his voice cracks. And he was, he He's good at getting really mad.
And tell us about all the people who are complete unknowns in Fast Times.
Well, him for one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were all unknowns.
Yeah.
And there were a few people that came in that were more known or going to be more known. One person that I really liked was Scott Baio for Damone. And another person that came in, he didn't read, he came in with his people, was Ralph Macchio to play Ratner. But Art Linson said, you know what, it's going to make the balance uneven. You know, you're going to have a guy with a big trailer and all the other people in the,
Also, wouldn't it hurt the story to see unknown faces and then somebody you recognize from other movies?
I don't know, because actors are supposed to play parts.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to go, wait a minute, there's Superman. I mean, I think you'd get over that, but he felt like we should have an even playing field. So we went with that. And, I still love those guys and I like them in other things, but we kind of said, we'll find people.
Nicolas
There was
Cage.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, Forrest
totally
Whitaker, Nick
unknown.
Cage.
Yeah, Forrest. I love Forrest. He was amazing, and I wish that there was a lot more for him to be doing in that movie. There's plenty of him since then and things. We had all the buds were, Eric Stoltz.
Stoltz, right.
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
Nicolas Cage, and just everybody that was like, okay, you'll have two friends. Surfer bud number 1, surfer bud number 2, fast food bud number 1, fast food bud number 2. But we gave them names because, they're characters and people. But there were amazing people out there at that time.
We have to ask you about Ray Walston.
Yeah.
And I loved from the director's commentary, and I'd heard this somewhere before, that his acting style and Sean Penn's acting style clashed a bit. Safe to say?
You could say that, although I think both Sean and Ray were capable of doing all sorts of things. I mean, certainly the character he played in Mice and Men and the character he played in The Apartment and in South Pacific, those, those were all, you could be musical comedy, you could be on stage, you could be in a film, you could be in a realistic film, a sad film, a happy film. I mean, he could do anything, as could Sean. But the way they worked was very different.
That's what I meant.
I mean,
I didn't mean acting styles. I meant acting processes.
yeah, Ray Walston liked to sort of ride his bike around. He wore these glasses that kept that were like opaque, so he could just shut out the world and think about what he was doing and concentrate. And he would know all his lines really well, and then he was ready to go, and he knew what he wanted to do. And Sean decided it would be a fun idea to change all his off-screen dialogue and totally insult him.
That's what I like.
And, Ray Walston came up to me in between and he goes, "You tell that young man I do not appreciate that. I know what I'm doing." And it's like, okay. But, Sean does what Sean does, and it works.
Now, I heard, getting back to my favorite topic, I heard Jennifer Jason Leigh is one of those actresses that, as opposed to Phoebe giving you trouble showing her tits, she wouldn't give anybody trouble taking her clothes off.
At the time, I can't say what it's like now, but at the time she was very comfortable. She had no problem at all. And I remember that the producer was a little worried, okay, after the Phoebe situation, maybe we should have a body double just in case there's any problem. So we got one, but she never knew about this. And there was less than no trouble. She was completely comfortable and happy.
Interesting. They both come from showbiz families.
Yeah.
Vic Morrow is her dad, and Joe Cates, Phoebe Cates' father.
Is that Joe Cates?
Joe
Gil
Cates or
Cates?
Gil Cates?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah,
which
her
one.
father's Joe, the uncle's
Uncle was Gil, the director. So you grew up in the Bronx.
Yes.
You're a local kid like us, and doing a little research on you and finding out that to getting back to the introduction about Cagney. You want to explain the Cagney thing and the Speedy Alka-Seltzer thing real quick, so our viewers aren't confused by that. Our listeners.
Well, I mean, you have a kid and you put it in a playpen and you put the TV on, and that's how they grow up. And the I really responded to James Cagney. I mean, from way before kindergarten, just because of his energy. He was like a cartoon character. He was like somebody that you just see him do stuff. If you're a little kid, he'd come in, he'd like smack a guy around, and you'd just like crack up because it was funny. It was so energetic and crazy. And Speedy Alka-Seltzer, the other one I mentioned, was I just like the look, the big head and the little hat. I mean, it's like somebody that's in a playpen. Oddly enough, I have a grandchild now who's like 1.5. And, there's like slats on a staircase. And so we hold the slats and I go, let me out of here, you screws. And she does it too. She can't talk yet, but she babbles.
No, you do, Cagney.
Yeah. And we pretend we're in prison. And, we goof around. That's our game.
What else did you watch? We asked this of a lot of our guests. You watch cartoons. I read you said you were a latchkey kid.
Yeah. I'd come home and one thing Gilbert talked about with other guests was in New York there was a $1 Million Movie.
I love that you did your research and listened to other episodes. That's so rare.
Well, that freaked me out because there were so many similarities. But $1 Million Movie, and I talked about this with other New York directors. It's like you'd come home. It was on every night at a reasonable time, like 7 or something. A kid could watch it. And every day the same movie was on.
Right.
So by the end of the week, if it was Godzilla, you knew all the shots. If it was Jolson Sings Again, you knew it. And then on the weekend, they'd show it a few times a day on Saturday and Sunday. Well, I mean, when Yankee Doodle Dandy was on, forget it. I was just in for the weekend. There was no taking me to the park or the grocery store or anything. I was just like, no, you just leave me there.
I remember I've always said that when I was growing up, the greatest film school in the country was in your living room.
Yeah.
Because it was just old films that were probably not even that old.
Well, you had to deal with the commercials, but that aside.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You really got
And
really
a
got to see them dozens
mixture.
of times.
There'd be one channel had the monster movies, the other the gangster films, the other's musicals.
Yeah. And you just watch them over and over, which is the best thing to do. And this was before you could rent a video and before DVDs and before streaming. So if you really loved movies, that was what you did. And then the next big jump ahead for me was like when you had DVR and you could go fast forward and backward. Because you could say, okay, how many times did he turn his head when Mrs. Robinson came in? Because it's like weird. And you go, yeah, they repeated that shot, and he's turning his head a bunch of times, and you could count it, and you could watch in slow motion, and you could really study and see how things were made and see the seams. And, that's a great thing.
So you loved Roaring Twenties and Angels with Dirty Faces, and you just watched that stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I want to talk about Vorkapich now.
The which?
Vorkapich.
You're bringing back film school here, Amy.
Yeah, no, most people in film school don't know about this. In the Roaring Twenties, there's the Depression hits, and the money is building up and building up and building up, and the people are buying stuff, and then it blows up, and all the papers are going all over the people in Wall Street, and all the close-ups of different angles of the people looking all upset, and the stock market blows up, and what is the glass thing that the ticker tape was in?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what
all
it's
of
called.
that stuff was done by this little Russian guy, Vorkapich. In fact, they used to call montages Vorkapiches.
Slavko Vorkapich? Wasn't that his name?
Yes.
Yes.
And he did that stuff in the Roaring Twenties when you see the Prohibition starting and all the bottles and all the gangsters and all the shootouts and the way it was all meshed together and the legs going one way and the bottles going around and beautiful, amazing geometric movement. And so I love that stuff. Well, when I went to AFI, he came and
Wow.
taught a course.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first day, the place was packed. And a few lessons in, it was just like me and Stuart Kornfeld. It was just like everybody was like, nah. But that was just the best way of seeing how movies are put together and what you can do. And people always make fun of like, oh, yeah, newspapers in a train, and that's how you go
we were
on
talking
tour.
about that with Donnie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Awkward time-lapse devices.
It's awkward when you've seen it imitated 20 times. The first time you saw it, and and it told you how it was on the road and how many places somebody went in 30 seconds, or how somebody could be going crazy and what kind of images they're seeing in their dreams and all of that. You go, wow, that's amazing. And that's very efficient storytelling. And yeah, when lesser people do it, it's totally cheesy.
So he showed up, was a big deal, and then only the hardcore people were stuck around for the end.
Yeah, because, he would take like Potemkin and show you where some shots were facing the wrong way and recut it.
Interesting.
And you go, wow. Or he'd have a bunch of shots of balls rolling one way, rolling another way. And when they're cut one way, it makes sense and it connects. When they're cut another way, it doesn't. And that's the basis of any kind of cutting that's going to work or not work. You could do it with just rolling balls. And then you know where a max cut should be. But the first day he was there, and he was like a little guy. I mean,
Did you ever hear of him, Gilbert?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Battleship. Wait a minute.
Well, that was Eisenstein.
That was Eisenstein.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of Battleship Potemkin like a fucking idiot.
But anyhow, he's this tiny little old guy.
Yeah.
And he's got one of those Steve Martin arrows through his head. And it's so adorable. And he's saying, now, what do you see? You think you see an arrow going through my head because the eye will put things together in a certain way. And that's what we're going to learn.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that name since I went to SVA in the 80s for film.
Uh-huh.
And I studied with a film critic named Amy Taubin. Uh-huh. And she educated us about. I haven't heard that name since 1984. But it's amazing that I remembered his first name.
There were the funny thing about film, and I mean, even like you think of Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's the whole point of your brain trying to make sense of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you put someone in front of a little building, you go, well, he must be gigantic.
Yeah.
Because buildings are big.
And if you put some people looking up screaming, then you assume that those people are looking up at that. And then you can make a scary monster movie.
Now, before we forget, let's get to the time you invited me to your house for dinner.
Oh, I was wondering when he was going to get around to that. If there's an objectionable part, we can always take it out.
Well, okay. So Gilbert said, I said, he just got to town, and he wanted.
You guys befriended each other after you made the movie together? Was that how you first met, or did you know each other?
I think I knew you before that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, before that, because I wanted to put him in it.
Right.
I wanted to put you in Clueless.
Yeah.
And
what
Scott
role?
Rudin said, the driving tester.
Oh.
And Scott Rudin said, why don't you put him in one of your other films? So...
Yeah, he doesn't like
that
me.
bastard.
Yeah. He doesn't like me, Scott
Wow.
Rudin.
But,
he taught me everything I know about pussy.
Which is, basically, that was the whole, I said, well, I'm making dinner already. And, he goes, what's for dinner? I'm making rice and some vegetables. Why? What do you like on rice? He goes, pussy. I go, all right, well, I'm making rice with vegetables. You can come over if you want. And he goes, well, how will I get there? Because they didn't rent you a car or anything.
No.
So he said, get a cab. Then he gets depressed. And he said, get a cab. I'll pay for it when it gets here.
I want to pay for a cab.
And, and then there's the whole feud with my daughter's babysitter,
Yeah.
Barbara.
Her
infamous.
babysitter came to pick me up, who was...
Her parents were both in concentration camps, which she thinks is Gilbert's fault.
It may be.
So she's going, my father was 80 pounds when he got out of the Auschwitz, and he's going, that's a great diet. How do you get on that diet? And he just said anything in the world to upset her. She would be laughing and then yelling at him.
Because I remember we were driving in the car, and I was just, ready to have a free dinner. That's all I cared. And without even, it may rain later or anything like that, she goes, my parents were in the camps. And I said, oh, was it a camp that had, folk singing and arts and crafts? And she'd go, you son of a bitch. No, it was the camp. And I remember I'd be on the phone with her. And Molly, your daughter Molly, was about one something. And I would say, can you put Molly on the phone? And she'd go, okay. And I'd get on the phone and go, what are you wearing, Molly? Are you wearing a diaper? Would you like me to put some powder on your ass? And she goes, don't say that to that girl. That's so horrible. And I said, I'm really, really sorry, Barbara. Can I go on and apologize? And she'd put me back on. They go, Molly, I'd really like to spank you. She'd go, you son of a bitch. Why do you say that?
Actually, she would call in when Gilbert was on Howard Stern.
Right, I know about this.
And start yelling at him there.
You guys have interesting history.
One time calling your house, and she answered. And I think for some reason, I don't think we sound at all alike, but she said, oh, Valley, how are you? And I think she thought it was Wallace Shawn or something.
That could be. I mean, because, with her accent, she probably, New York Americans probably all sound similar.
And so I started to talk to her, pretending I was Wallace Shawn and saying, yeah, I'm in town. I'm shooting a movie. I'm working on an off-Broadway play. And then after talking to her the longest time, I'd say, I said to her, so did you ever blow a Nazi commandant? And she yelled out, Gilbert, I'll rip your fucking dick off.
Sounds like Ilsa the she-wolf.
Yes.
Oh, is that pornographic Nazi movie?
Yeah.
Oh, who was Ilsa?
I'm trying to remember now. Diane Thorne.
That was like a porn movie in a concentration camp that looked like Hogan's Heroes set.
Yes.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Very weird. And, just like that garish 1970s colors and, big breasts coming out of her Nazi SS uniform.
I remember, on every time I'd be on 42nd Street, there'd be an Ilsa movie playing.
Oh, God. That's sick stuff.
All kinds of stuff to ask you about
And
here.
then there was that, remember they did one artsy film that wasn't Ilsa, that was like The Night Porter.
Oh, the one with Dirk Bogarde.
Yeah.
And
The Night Porter.
what's her face from Georgie Girl?
Oh, gosh.
Charlotte Rampling.
Charlotte Rampling, right.
And she's wearing
I was
suspenders.
going to say Lynn Redgrave.
And the Nazi-
Georgie Girl. You threw me.
Georgie Girl
I was like, wait a minute.
And Burt Bacher acted
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Charlotte
right.
Rampling, right. I remember the poster. It was a very sexy
It
poster.
was like
Yes.
suspenders with no shirt
And she got the Nazi
hat.
biker cap.
What was
Yeah.
the deal? Was it about
I
Stockholm
never
Syndrome or
saw it.
something?
I remember the ad.
He was a Nazi, and she was an inmate of a camp.
But they had a relationship.
Yes.
In a sick sort of...
Yeah.
a lot of S&M stuff, I think some of the biggest selling S&M costume items are Nazi women,
I buy them.
You buy them for all your friends, yeah.
Can we ask you about some of the actors, from some of the great character actors that you worked with on Johnny Dangerously?
Okay, but some of them didn't play Nazis.
We just want to talk about Sig Rumen.
We can talk about. I'm happy to talk about Sig Rumen. You worked with Alan Hale Jr. on Johnny
wow.
Dangerously.
Yeah, but that was just like 2 shots,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and it was, it was very. He was kind of old then, but he was a sweet guy.
What about DeLuise? What about Dom
Dom
DeLuise?
DeLuise, that was another thing where it was 2 shots. He was sort of part of the gang of the producer and, the other 20th Century Fox comedies that they insisted we want X amount of names and here's one that you're going to put in.
It's got
somewhere.
a great cast, that movie.
It had a fun cast, yeah.
And was it based on the Clark Gable movie, on Manhattan Melodrama?
No, is there a movie that they took a plot from?
Well, there's
I didn't know that.
it's a little like that plot.
I mean, there's always like, the brother where one goes good and one goes bad, and that's a lot of gangster movies.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Keaton's great in it. It's such a fun film.
And
the running gag with
Griffin
Ray
Dunn,
Walston.
And everybody's favorite, Joe Piscopo.
And Mary Lou Henner and Maureen Stapleton.
Now, I heard you wanted someone else for the Piscopo part.
Well, I had a different kind of movie in my head. And so I wasn't thinking like the studio of like, we see 10 comedy names, 5 on this side of the poster and 5 on that side of the poster. And that's like how they saw the movie. And I thought, okay, so really evil bad guy who's so evil it'll be funny. And I thought James Woods.
Uh-huh.
And they said, no, you can't put James Woods in a comedy. And I thought, sure you could. But there was
He's
a
very
different...
funny.
Yeah, no, they wanted Joe Piscopo.
Well, like the studio, I think originally they wanted, when they were making Airplane, to pack it with comedians.
Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just saw Letterman auditioning for the Robert Hayes part.
Oh,
It's
wow.
circulating on the web. Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's bizarro. Yeah.
And it would have been, the whole point of it
Of course.
would have been gone.
Of course. Well, they were parodying Zero Hour.
Yeah.
So they had to get those kind of actors.
Yeah.
The Robert Stacks.
But they
and
don't get that because,
Right.
especially because once It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World came out, that
Right.
seemed to be the formula. Like, you'll get the Three Stooges and Buster Keaton and Dick Shawn, and, you get all the people from every decade. And
how many
throw
of
them all
those movies
together.
really worked out?
And
How many of those
they
all-star
all
comedy films?
bombed. We're
We're just
going to
talk.
talk.
We're going to talk
it.
about them in a little mini episode with Mike afterward. About
You could talk to us if you want to stay around. You could
we're going to talk about
that.
Scavenger Hunt and all of these other
And
movies.
the Rat Race.
is there a movie called Scavenger
Yeah,
Hunt?
with Tony Randall.
that
and I
was
think-
made by Hefty Bags.
I'm not. No, that was $1 Million Mystery.
That was million.
There were these cheapo knockoffs of It's a Mad, Mad World.
Well, the Rat Race.
Rat Race,
yeah.
sure, with Whoopi and Cleese.
But
There are a bunch of
what's his
them.
name was
The
funny
one
in that
kind
John
of
Lovitz.
good
Yeah,
one.
and
The
Rowan
Barbie
At-
Museum,
Rowan
that was
Atkinson's funny
hilarious.
too.
We went
Yeah.
to the Barbie Museum, but it was Klaus Barbie.
Oh, yes. The one kind of good one was Who's Minding the Mint?
I never
That
saw
had
that
Milton
one.
Berle and Jack Gilford and
Yeah, they
Victor Bono.
figure let's get all of them together, and that should be something.
Yeah, I like The Great Race. I mean, it's
Yeah.
uneven. It's not exactly an
No.
all-star cast,
But
but
like-
it's got
wouldn't
Keenan
have
Wynn
thought
and
it-
Jack Lemmon and
Yeah.
Falk and Tony
Well,
Curtis.
you can't go wrong with those guys.
Natalie Wood. It's it's bloated and it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a better movie than It's Mad, Mad, Mad World.
Mad
Tony
Mad
Curtis
World
with his teeth
is
glinting.
Oh yeah, Blake
That was-
Edwards.
My
Mad-
kid loved that. Molly, when she was a little kid, she loved that movie. She
Re-
watched it over and over.
It's fun. Me too. Revisit it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
fun.
no, I don't have to. I've seen it a million
Right.
times. But it for a kid,
Yeah.
it was a funny movie.
Yeah.
Mad Mad World is one of those movies I advise everyone to see it, but it's really not that good for the most part.
Yeah, because you're kind of going, and this is, I guess, what the studio's counting on, because it's much harder to write and make a good story. As you're watching it, you're going, I wonder who'll be in it next.
Oh, yes, yes.
And-
you get lost.
Yeah, and
in
if you're a
that,
little
lose the
kid, you
story.
go, oh, the Three Stooges. Oh, that silent guy.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy. And that's exciting and fun. But that doesn't mean that it all holds together.
And I get the impression that when they were making Mad Mad World, there were probably about 10 directors working on it.
Huh. Wait, who directed that?
Kramer.
Stanley Kramer,
Yeah.
Wow.
Who's known for
Whoa.
his wacky
the man who
sense of
made
humor.
Judgment at Nuremberg
Whoa.
Yeah.
and the Defiant
Which was
Ones.
like the opposite. Let's get a shitload of serious guys to
Right.
throw together.
right. And Spencer Tracy will be the
Yeah,
common.
right.
Speaking of bad movies, I love this that I found in my research. Ed Wood was kind of indirectly inspired Cher's character in Clueless.
You didn't call that a bad movie, did you?
What's that?
Ed Wood?
No, a maker of bad movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I love that movie.
No, I love it. We've
Yeah.
had Scott
That
and Larry
was
here.
a great movie.
Yes,
but
I
the
adore that one.
character was inspiring because, I mean, he's like kind of enlightened in a way. It's like he's creating and he's having fun and he's got these friends that would work with him and love him. And he's made this life. And if you look at it from another place, you could go, ha ha, what a loser, his movies stink. But if you're him and you go, he's having the perfect life. It's wonderful because he chose to look at things positively. And that blows my mind because I could never do that. I mean, the idea that, like, when you rewrite a script, it gets better and better. And you just think, like, yeah, but it's really hard, and how do you know it's not getting worse? But no, he's rewriting it, so it's better and better. And then, you want one for safety? What for? It was perfect. I mean, just to go around being that positive.
I hope he was really like that because it's one of the charming aspects of Ed Wood, the movie.
It's
that you
one
just
of the
fall in
most
love with him.
charming characters I can imagine.
Yeah.
That he was a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun performance and a wonderful character. And so that kind of inspired you. You were, coming off the Vacation movie? And you didn't know what you wanted to do next?
I don't know what I was coming off of, but, I was not happy, and I was trying to think, like, everybody's pushing me to do this and that, and I worked really hard on a script, and they were going, nah, it's too smart. And I'm going, say it stinks. Don't say it's too smart. That's not a reason to dislike something. And so I thought, oh, what else? What do I want to do? What kind of character do I like? What do I like watching? And then I was thinking of, like, happy people and, like, what's the deal with that? And so, one thing led to another. But that was one of the...
Because those kind of people mystify you, you said.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you said you were in director's jail for a while.
Yeah, you're always in director's jail. And then, I mean, I knew I would be in director's jail after Johnny Dangerous because we had a screening and the numbers were really bad. And so I thought, well, I better take something right now so that they'll say, oh, you can't be in jail because you're still working on that, which has got these stars in it. So, we'll have to wait and see before we, like, write you off. And not that I want to be with any of the female people, but women don't get, like, a lot of second chances. And so I had to really, really maneuver. I didn't want to be, like, doing girls lose their virginity movies because they did in Fast Times, so that's what we'll allow you to do.
That's what you were being offered at the time.
Yeah. And then you do a gangster movie because you go, like, I want to do a boy movie. And then they don't get the comedy, so suddenly it's like, uh-oh, I got to do something where they do get the comedy because there it is. It's worked before. It's the exact same thing. It's a sequel. And they'll push that and they'll be behind it because that's their franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that doesn't work, then they're, kicking you out of the industry. And then you got to, grab onto a pen and hold on to it. And, like, hopefully it gets you through the horrible waters of showbiz.
And you tried to, thinking, I guess it would be a major success because the others were. was getting you into European Vacation.
So, wait, what was the question?
Well, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
that one.
Well, it's like I think you thought, well, I'll take European Vacation because the vacation movies were all hits.
There was only one.
Oh, there was only one up until then.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there was the Vacation where they go to Wally World. And then the studio said that made money, and let's get Chevy back and have him go to Europe. And so I read the script, and I thought, Wally, Chevy Chase going to Europe, being the ugly American, yeah, that could work. Inadvertently ruining things. But nothing went right. Nothing that was in the script made sense in actual Europe, which I had never been to. So
hey, another reason to make the movie.
I never
get to go to Europe.
know like what the reality of a lot of things were, and it was. I'm like, I don't travel well. I'm like one of those ones.
You describe
you
yourself
leave
as
it
an
in its place.
agoraphobic, Amy.
Huh?
You've described yourself as an agoraphobic. But you're tongue in
wide
cheek.
open spaces,
Uh-huh.
yeah. When we went to California, drove across America, and it's like, okay, that's enough of that. I'll never do that again. Cornfields and
Right.
deserts and shit.
I'm with you.
No.
Yeah, I don't see the point in traveling.
You're not a guy for the country or
No,
the suburbs either.
no.
You're,
No.
Yeah. You remind me of Alvy Singer.
Oh,
he
yes,
says he doesn't want
yes.
the dead moths in the screen doors.
Like, I like seeing nature if I'm inside a car or in a hotel room, air-conditioned, looking out on nature. I don't wanna
like
be
seeing
in
nature
it.
if I'm in a museum
Yeah.
and I'm seeing a painting of
Yeah.
it.
Or a diorama.
Or, let's see what Monet did with it.
Right.
But I don't really want to go there.
And you don't like sequels. I mean, I've heard you speak about, the stories told. The story
Well-
has come full circle. Why do we need to revisit these characters again?
A lot of the time, that's the case. I mean, something like James Bond, you wouldn't call those sequels.
Sure, no. That's different.
There are some things where you just go that could go on and on, but most things, they tell the story. There's a big kiss at the end, or whatever, and that story is told if it's done right.
It seems with sequels, the characters have to forget
Yeah.
everything they learned in the first movie.
Yeah, actually, we don't like each other. Now that we think of it,
Or they have to find a similar jeopardy, a jeopardy that's so similar to something in the first movie that was so unique,
yeah.
and make that try to create that lightning in a.
I mean, when you think about it, and the great hope of all sequels is Godfather.
Sure.
Godfather 2.
But there was more story to be told in that case.
Yeah, but even that was like, okay, there's all this wonderful material, and this one told the stuff in the middle. So let's tell the stuff before and after, which was kind of strange because it was almost like it wasn't a complete story in the first Godfather, although it felt like it was.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like a sequel. But that was the one time where you go like, yeah, you could do Godfather 2 and that'll be good.
But then came Godfather 3 years later
Yes.
to prove.
Well, he
Yeah.
was dragged kicking and screaming into that, wasn't he?
Oh.
He resisted forever.
Oh, God, that was so horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think. You'd have to count on one hand the number of sequels that are.
Bride of Frankenstein.
Well, yes.
Bride of
Yes.
Frankenstein and Godfather.
Yes, that's a good example.
Yeah.
And
Not many.
what I remember is in Jaws 2,
Don't bring that one up.
the mayor had didn't believe there was a shark. And I thought, well, he already witnessed all this. And
Yeah.
didn't you see Jaws 1, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
That's a future episode idea.
Oh, yes.
Successful sequels. Not many.
What works sometimes is the meeting of things. Abbott and Costello meet people.
Sure.
Godzilla meets another monster, and things that you go, well, I like this and I like that, and so they might as well both fight.
It's different though, because it's like Bond. You'd have one character that you're building new stories around. When you have to take 10 or 12 characters from the first movie and now make magic again with those elements, that's got to be tough.
But also those all those Marvel and DC movies, but those are like comics, and there's endless amounts of stories with those guys. But I didn't like when they made Superman and Batman going to fight together, and I don't like the idea of superheroes that I'm supposed to like being against each other. I don't want there to be a civil war, and I don't want Superman to fight with Batman. I want them to fight with bad guys, because the fun stuff about those is like fun bad guys.
Right.
That's the best.
That's how I feel about Bernie and Hillary, by the way.
And you were a fan of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
When I was a kid, I thought it was hilarious that there were, all these monsters that I liked were in this movie that was funny. And there they all were together. And that was just like, wait a minute, the Wolfman and Bela Lugosi and Frankenstein?
I was the same way. I thought because I wasn't familiar. It was so exciting when you were a kid to see a movie you had heard about. And I remember the first time I saw Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, I go, well, wait a second. It's not just Frankenstein. It's also the Wolfman and Dracula.
Yeah.
And Chaney is back as the Wolfman, and Lugosi finally is back as Dracula.
Yeah, that was a mind blower. And then at the end, it's like the Invisible Man. And you go,
Vincent Price, the cameo.
Oh, my God, how did they get everybody? And that's just so great.
Yeah. You should watch Amy's movie Vamps, Gil, because there's a lot of homages to the old classic horror stuff. I mean, Wallace Shawn turns up as Van Helsing.
Oh.
Can we ask you about Marty Brest, a person we've talked about on this show? We've talked
so
about
funny
going
because,
in style.
Okay. I was in my basement writing, and Marty calls me up. We're friends. This was a billion years ago. And he goes, okay, you've been watching MTV. You got to see this guy. He's sitting on the beach with his eyes closed yelling. And it was you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who
and
knew?
He went crazy for you. He said, you got to see him. You got to see him. And, then I saw him, and it was like, oh, my God, that guy's hilarious. And it was those interstitials you did. You were sitting on the beach and blah, blah, blah.
Yes, when I was doing those things for MTV.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was my first exposure to Gilbert, like me and Marty going, okay, let's go watch that guy. Oh, my God, that guy's great, and let's talking about you.
It's come full circle.
Yeah.
We were doing mini episodes. We changed the format of them, but we would each pick a movie that we were obsessed with, and I picked Going in Style, which I'm sad to say is being remade, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
And I love Midnight Run and so much of his work. And what is he up to? Is he
I'm
working?
Like,
is he?
You have to have clearance to get the information.
I see. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, because he's a very, very private person. He's the J.D. Salinger.
He's turned into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm just fascinated by his disappearance, and not in a good way, because I'd like to see more of his.
Well,
I'd like to see more films.
He did some. I'm not supposed to say, but he did something that is amazing, and I hope gets made because it's amazing.
Oh, a great script.
Well.
Oh, okay. You can't talk.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to say anything.
Well, we'll leave it.
Yeah.
Now you were telling me before we got on the air of some show you saw me do. With
my God! Yeah. And I don't know if it was Move On or what it was. It was a political left-wing thing, and everybody was there. Everybody from Seinfeld to every big comic that there was at the time, and everybody was really hilarious. And then Gilbert comes on, and he blows everybody out of the water.
Not surprising.
Was just like amazing. I was like crying. It was. And I think some of the stuff was about, was it Waldheim?
Oh, yes, yes.
The Joyce DeWitt bit?
Yeah, no, this was that bit See, but it's a physical bit, so you can't really...
You were saying hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, right. But that
Yeah.
was part of the same Waldheim bit. Where
Oh,
they
yes.
chase him to the top of the building, and the mob is surrounding him.
Oh,
With
yeah. And
you don't do that
they're
anymore.
saying something like, oh, is that Norman Fell?
Oh, it's me,
Yeah.
character. Right.
Yeah.
I'm doing your own act
Yeah,
back
yes.
here. I used to see him. Caroline's had a club at the Seaport in the old days, and he would do a very long show in those days. And the Waldheim bit was a favorite.
Yeah.
That was like hilarious.
Yeah.
That was.
It ended with a Joyce DeWitt punchline.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yes, it
The
was
premise is
something-
that the crowd chases Waldheim up to the top of a tower because I guess it's angry Jews.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he had a suspected Nazi past.
Yeah, and well, I remember the bit. See, this is the problem because I remember the bit was I was talking to Kurt Waldheim, and he said, a couple of years ago I was in Germany on vacation.
That's the one.
And a guy was taking my picture, and who goes walking past right as the picture's being taken? Adolf Hitler. Well, I don't want him in the picture. I don't even know the guy. And then I do like I throw my arm out and like a Zig Heil, and I go, wait, don't take that picture. Wait.
That's the physical part.
Yes.
But the rest of that bit was
of them thinking he's Norman Fell.
right. He yells down, "It's me!" Character actor Norman
and
Fell.
I think Kurt Waldheim at one point to save his own life goes, I had a volatile working relationship with Cindy Williams.
Right. Well, they say if I remember the bit correctly, it's how do we know you're Norman Fell?
Yeah. Yes.
And you yell down, Joyce DeWitt had a likable vulnerability.
Yes. A likable vulnerability.
Hilarious. Did you study with Terry Southern at NYU? The great Terry Southern?
The great Terry Southern. If you'd call it studying,
Yeah. The writer of Dr. Strangelove and
Yes,
Candy,
I
and for our
know,
listeners
I
that
know.
aren't familiar, and shame on you if you're not.
Yeah, he came to NYU and he picked out some people to be in an advanced writing class. And then he said, but I don't want to sit here in a classroom. It's too boring. You'll all meet me in Hungry Charlie's or some bar. And we'd all have separate times. And he kept making my time like the last one and asking me if I needed a ride home. And I didn't. I mean, I did need a ride home, but I was like, afraid. And the thing is, like, as the night wore on, he'd get more and more drunk. And so by the time, it was time to talk about my stuff, he was like, he was drunk. He just wanted to drive me home, and I didn't. Oh, I was so stupid. And years later, I meet this other girl.
Uh-huh.
And I told her about it, and she goes, you didn't sleep with him? Like, what are you, an idiot? Like she did. I mean, it's like, he's a big shot in the
Road
movie
easy
industry.
rider. You have to sleep with him.
And like, what are you, you go back to your job at Metropolitan Life for minimum wage, and where do you think you're going to get in this world?
Now, here's something like, there have actually been books and websites on this, and it's so funny. And that's the alternate reality in movies, like where there are these scenes like the talking killer, like the killer who has the gun on the hero, but rather than shoot him, wants to give a long...
Sure.
What scenes like that appeal to you, and those weird things that are the movie universe?
Well, like you say, every time you go, God, you could kill him so fast.
Yeah.
What are you horsing around? It just happened for me for that Batman Superman one where it's like Martha. And I was like, oh, no, really? We're going to hang everything on that?
I didn't see it.
Oh. And
It's okay.
they're fighting.
Everybody's seen it.
And first of all, it always starts out like all these guys that have superpowers or amazing weapons, but somehow it's like exploding, flying, exploding, all sorts of weaponage, and then it's always down to man.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And why?
I don't know.
Why? What was wrong with all the weapons? That couldn't work? But, like, you're going to get punched and that'll kill you?
What I love in movies is when the hero and the villain, or when the villain has a weapon on a hero, and the hero will go, "You don't want to kill me that way. It's too easy. Come on, let's do this man to man."
Yeah.
Why would you give up your weapon?
That's stupid. If you want to kill somebody, you want to kill them.
Kill them and go home.
Yeah,
That's it.
I agree. I mean, if you're going to the trouble of, like, meeting somebody who wants to kill you and being finally in the position where you could kill them, why jerk around after that? Just do it.
The other thing that gets me, it's also a variation on talking killers, but when it's a mob like Don, like the high guy in charge, rather than just killing them or saying, "You cheated me," and then taking out a gun and killing, they always go into like a long, college thesis. Like they'll go, in 1803, there was... They would have the celebration of the cockroach. Now, the cockroach was considered a sign of luck and a sign of prosperity. And I thought, what? Are all these gangsters so like...
You also hate the romantic comedies. We talked about how when you get to that point in the rom-com when you know that the two people who are meant for each other have to pull apart.
Yeah.
So that they could, and there's always a device. There's always a clumsy device. Somebody overhears a phone call they weren't supposed to hear, or there's the dumbest of misunderstandings.
Yeah, it's...
Rom-coms are idiotic. I can't stand them.
How many times do they catch them at the airport?
Oh, that's
not
the other thing.
anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was always the running airport stuff since, like, 9/11. You can't, like...
Oh, you can't run to the gate anymore.
Right.
No,
Right.
there's no more of that.
Last time I
It's like-
saw that was in Love Actually.
Yeah.
They're running to the.
Yeah, you can't do that stuff anymore.
This brings
and
up.
if you do, I'm in the theater going, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That ain't...
And the other thing is in romantic comedies, it's like immediately considered great comedy if a girl is in a wedding dress, not in a wedding situation. If she's out in the street in a wedding dress or in a supermarket.
Well, this bothers you.
Yeah.
I did. I was reading
can't
an
stand
interview
it.
with you, and you can't stand that all of these rom-coms and all these women are in searching for.
Weddings.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. There's so many various 27 dresses and the wedding singer and and my best friend's wedding and there's a million of them. And they all run into each other.
Okay, I pitched this thing that was making fun of all of them. Everybody said, "Oh no, you can't do that." I called it The Wedding Brides, and it was
Funny title.
it was like all the tropes of, like, 3 women have a bet over who could get married first.
Oh, jeez.
But somebody videotapes them and it goes viral, so everybody gets involved. And then, big gamblers decide that they're going to, like, send in a ringer to make one of them fall in love with him so that they could win the bet because she'll be the ugliest one. But they really do fall in love, and then, all the things that could be stupidly, idiotically in these things. Mm-hmm. And I pitched it at the studios who all said no, but, I try to get it, like, why? Why no? And they go, because women like these movies and they don't want to see it made fun of.
I think that's wrong.
I agree.
Yeah.
And also in romantic
Bridesmaids.
comedies, the woman always has to have a gay friend.
Mine all had gay friends.
Yeah.
So, because, and then you have to have what I called a lesser, because there has to be some sort of child or cripple or, like, financially some person that you're friends with to show that you're cool,
And the girl in romantic comedies always has to have a less attractive best friend, and her job is to show up in the movie and go, "You know what's your problem? You work all day, and you care more about your job than finding a guy. That's
Or
her
you don't
job.
see the guy that's standing right in front of you. You never gave him an opportunity.
Yes.
Well, that was always the thing. It's like the guy that's right in front of you, or the one that you would immediately dismiss that you didn't realize was so good, and blah blah blah. But and the thing is with these, like, the friend who's like the ugly but funny friend who has some sassy answers, those have gone through like different ethnicities. Like,
Oh, yes. Yes.
Goldie Hawn would have a Jewish friend
Right.
who would be eating and telling her what was wrong with her. Then there came the black friends. Then there came the, like, Hispanic and the Asian. So it's like, if you were, like, not a leading lady, but you were the wrong ethnicity, you were out of luck. And, then they, like, said, oh, I think there's, like, actual kickbacks given now for, certain ethnicities that you can, they get some money because the studios have to be less white.
Oh, interesting.
And so I have a friend who tries to act like he's Middle Eastern because he's actually Jewish, but he looks Middle Eastern. I mean, he looks Jewish, but of the wrong kind of Jewish.
Yeah.
Because they don't get a kickback for that, for hiring a Jew, as opposed to, like, from some Middle East country.
Interesting. My wife and I notice a trend, too, with these rom-coms, is that women seem to be falling a lot, and it's always in the trailer.
Oh, yes.
Their shoes go out from under them, or they fall hailing a cab.
A high heel.
Yeah.
The heel coming off.
It's like a studio executive's way of saying, well, she's Cameron Diaz and she's too unattainable, and make her goofy and make her fall down in a puddle or get splashed.
She's like, so gorgeous and so able to, like, wear, like, 5-inch heels all the time. But she's a klutz.
Right, they're all klutzes.
Yes.
They're all klutzes.
See, because it's so funny. It's like you have to, the trick is to get a beautiful actress, but make the audience feel like, oh, no, she's just like a nebbish. Like, so we're supposed to believe, like, Julia Roberts and Sandra Bullock can't find a guy.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
That's
my
Hollywood.
favorite, as far as two people who couldn't find a mate, is in Frankie and Johnny.
Oh,
With Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer.
well, it was Kathy
That
Bates
was
on stage.
very different.
and
I was
F.
just gonna
Murray
say.
Abraham was
Yeah.
the Pacino
Right.
part.
Well, if you go to the studio and say, I want to do something like, a teenage Marty, but they'll go, okay, but we want the guy from American Pie that's very cute that all the girls like. So
Yeah.
you can't do it. They don't let you.
Right.
You can't put in the, like, average people.
That's interesting, a teenage Marty.
Because it is. It's like when I was watching Michelle Pfeiffer, which was just one example of a billion. And I'm thinking, why hasn't some guy walked into the diner and said, my God, this girl should be in Hollywood?
Because she had some, like, stringly hair.
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
down.
The alternative to having her fall while hailing a cab.
Oh, my
Glasses.
favorite, the glasses.
Right.
Where,
Right.
a beautiful actress puts glasses on and she's ugly and takes them off, and it's like there's that, oh my God moment. She's beautiful.
My wife and I watched Loser last night.
Well, that was the situation.
Right. I was thinking. So you got Jason Biggs.
I love Jason.
Yeah.
He's adorable.
Yeah.
But I was hoping for somebody a lot less leading man.
Right. I think it worked.
It was not what I was, you're writing one thing and they
Sure.
keep making you change it so you don't know what's good or bad anymore. And then it comes out
Compromises.
and makes no money. And then you go, you're an idiot. And you go, well, I'm an idiot because I couldn't think of, like, how to make this work with all these, things that you made me do.
Did you choose the song Teenage Dirtbag yourself, or was that your music supervisor? And I asked
No,
her.
they wrote that for us. I
That's
like
my
that song.
my sister-in-law's boyfriend,
Really?
Brendan Brown.
They're great.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They're on tour right now in the
Oh,
UK.
cool.
Yeah.
Tell them hi.
I will. Small world. And you're a fan of Mad magazine.
I love Mad Magazine. Because when I was little, there were a lot of movies I couldn't see, but I could read the Mad magazine, satires on them.
I know you. I saw you mention Mort Drucker. He's alive and well.
I know.
Mort Drucker's still alive.
Mort Drucker
Yes,
lives out in
yes.
Long Island. Al
Yeah.
Jaffe's alive and well, right here in the city. We'll probably have Al on the show. He's 95.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so funny
A lot of those
that
guys are
if
around.
you open Mad now, it's all these artists who grew up on Mad Magazine. So there's one that draws pictures in the style of Mort Drucker.
Yeah.
Right.
Another
Right.
style of Don Martin.
Aragonus. There's
Yeah.
an Aragonus
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
There's a thing they do with, the lighter side of,
Oh, yes.
where they take the old comic the way it was and change the dialogue to fit into stuff now. And it's cool because, the same situations but with slight changes are all still wonderful.
Yeah. Because Dave Berg's dead. They can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
won't
his
protest.
relatives and his estate get something. I'm sure they
I
do.
remember when Don Martin finally left Mad.
Yeah. It was a scandal. He went to Cracked.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Crack said, now with Don Martin. So fuck you.
Don's gone.
Yeah.
Don's gone. But I told the guys at Mad, I've written for Mad on and off for about 20 years, Amy. And
Wow.
I told the editor-in-chief that you were a fan. They were excited. So, Mort, we should get Mort and Al Jaffe
yes.
to
Oh,
come
yes,
and talk to us.
absolutely.
Mort sent me, and this is something I feel horrible about. He made a loose leaf with a lot of his pictures and autographed them to me, and it was like when my father was dying, and I wanted to send him a thank you and tell him how wonderful it was, and I just had other things like that. I was just putting off, and then it was too late. And then he called to see if I got it, and I went, oh, God, I didn't write a thank you quick enough. I'm such a jerk. But it's like my most treasured
Oh,
possession.
nice.
Yeah.
I remember when Beverly Hills Cop 2 came out, I saw a picture of me in a Mort Drucker.
You never showed me that.
cartoon. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the coolest thing there
Yeah.
could be.
That's
yeah.
cool.
That's like, that or Hirschberg with the Ninas on your face.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll show you something later outside that I brought
Oh, cool.
after we wrap.
I was just watching you in Beverly Hills Cop 2 with the thing in one hand that would make you forget the thing. But I had an issue with that because there was you and there was Paul Reiser, and you were playing someone named Bernstein who
Yes, Sid Bernstein.
was like cheating stuff
Yeah.
and wheeling and dealing. And Paul Reiser was the young Jewish guy who wanted to be more like Eddie Murphy. And I thought, well, this seems all very anti-Semitic. I mean, what is Jews can't be cool, or Jews are just cheating people? I mean,
I remember, and I don't know if you were doing this or what. There was, I think it was. They were casting for the part of a landlord, and originally, they wanted a black guy, and so, but they said, this black guy as this money-hungry landlord, that sounds racist. So they got a Jew.
Oy.
Well, we should start wrapping
Yep,
up.
this was fun.
This is great.
Thanks for coming and doing this,
Yes.
Amy. We know you
Anytime.
don't do many interviews,
I'm Gilbert Gottfried. This has been Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast with my co-host Frank Santopadre, once again at Nutmeg Post with our engineer Frank Verderosa. And today we've been talking to director, writer, producer, and all-around Jew in Hollywood, Amy Heckerling.
and we should thank Bobby Slayton too for setting this up.
Yes.
Our friend Bobby.
Yay, I love Bobby.
And good to see him in Loser.
And so, for all of the people who know, Amy Heckerling is the one with the German babysitter.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.